So in the last video, I talked a little bit about traditional publishing, and I kind of said it's okay if you want to go that way and find an agent and find a publisher, but you should also be aware of what goes into self-publishing so that you know whether or not it's worth it to get a publishing deal. Like if you get a publishing contract, a deal, you want to make sure you know what you're giving up and what you're paying for. So let me talk about the self-publishing process because it's a lot easier than most people think it would be. When you're publishing a book, basically you're taking a manuscript, you're probably getting it edited, and that's a whole other thing. I'll make a video about editing and all the different levels of editing that you need, but editing is hard work. Someone needs to spend a lot of time. If you get a traditional publishing deal, they may put an editor on it. They should, but they might just put a proofreader on it. Often they don't really have the bandwidth or the budget to do it as well as they should. So you want to be wary of, you want to tell the best story that you can. So editing may or may not always be worth the money, but that's probably where the most of your money is going to go if you're self-publishing, because editing can be very expensive. It's probably $2,000 or $3,000 to get your book edited well. You can get proofreading for less, but you probably need a developmental edit or a story edit or a structure edit. So that could cost money. You don't always have to pay for editing, and I'll talk about that later. You do have to pay for a book cover design, which can range from $100 to several $1,000s. And I'll have another video about that too. And then you need book formatting. So basically you're taking your manuscript, you're cleaning it up, getting it edited, you're paying for a book cover designer, the front cover for the ebook, and then the spine and back for the print book. You can set that up on CreateSpace or Ingram Spark. For distribution, you convert your interior format for print and also for ebook. That could cost a few $100s. Altogether, it could cost you $5,000 to publish a book, but you could also do it for $500. You could totally do it for $500. The difference may not be that huge. So you need to know what you're paying for. But for $500, you could get all the files that you need. You need a JPEG for the Kindle, a MOBI and an EPUB for the ebook, and then you put it up on KDP Select or Smashwords or Draft to Digital to distribute your book to all the ebook retailers, or just put it up on KDP and go direct with Amazon, which is the largest platform. iBooks is about 50% of the market these days, but Amazon's still the major player. So you want to decide where your books are going to be. I personally don't put my ebooks everywhere because I want my sales to be focused on one platform so that my sales rank stays high, so that my books are visible. Because if I get 5 sales a day on every platform, that's not that many and my visibility will be low. But if I get 50 sales on one platform, my sales rank will be much higher. I will keep getting more and more sales because the platform keeps showing me. So self-publishing can be pretty easy. All you're doing is turning your book into a finished product and putting it up for sale on websites like Amazon or iBooks so that readers can find them. Then there's a whole bunch of stuff on keywords and categories and pricing and visibility, and that's fun stuff we'll talk about later. That's more about discoverability. That's important stuff too that you need to learn about even if you're traditionally published, because most traditional publishers really don't know very much about visibility and discoverability. And that's a problem because they're not really going to do your Amazon page the way that it needs to be if you want to stay at the top of, for example, the Google search rankings. So when people search for best sci-fi books of 2016, you want your book to show up somewhere on the first page of Google. Traditional publishers don't think about any of that stuff. And actually most self-publishers don't either. I'm kind of on the cutting edge of book marketing, and the stuff I talk about is more advanced than most authors are ready for. But what you don't want to do is just put a book out there and spend a lot of money per sale. That's what most authors will do, is they advertise or they promote their books to sell their books. So they're pricing at $2.99, but they're spending $500 a month and barely breaking even on book sales you want your books to earn money. You want your books to earn hopefully a lot of money. The way to do that is to make sure your book shows up in natural search results when people search on Amazon or when they search on Google, so that your book is showing up or your website is showing up without you spending money on advertising or book marketing. Because when you're doing that, it's fine to do it in the beginning and to build your email list. I mean, that's fine, but you don't want to keep spending money month after month for years if you're not earning money back. That's dangerous. And publishing can be a huge sinkhole, and you can spend a lot of money thinking it's an investment because you're going to earn the money back later, and then never earning the money back. And you want to be careful to avoid that. I do recommend self-publishing because it's easier to make money back that you're spending, because you're earning 70% of the proceeds of your sales. Whereas with traditional publishing, there's no reason to spend money on marketing or advertising because you're only earning like 7% of the book sales. So it's hard for you to do very much with book marketing with your own money, so that you're actually earning money back. But with self-publishing, you can do some things, some smart things, like if you have your author platform set up the right way, if you have some books that are free or on perma-free, and you have a series and you have different pricing levels, you can do Facebook advertising and reach exactly the target perfect readers and get them invested in your fiction or your nonfiction. You can get them to go to your website and sign up for free samples to start reading and get them on your email list so that they'll buy your books later down the road. If you do things right, it's much easier to make money self-publishing than it is traditional publishing. And the difference really isn't that big because you may not get into bookstores anyway. Most of your sales are going to be online. And really all that's happening is they're taking your manuscript, they're turning it into an ebook and a print book, which is only a matter of formatting, maybe editing, and book design, which is mostly just Photoshop, turning your books into PDFs and JPEGs so that you can upload them. So that process for a book designer isn't that difficult. And you probably don't need to give up a lot of control to a traditional publisher unless you're getting a really big advance. If you're getting a small advance, like $5,000 or $10,000, I wouldn't even take the money because it's probably going to be worth it to you to spend a couple thousand of your own money instead, or even just to publish cheap for $100. If you're self-publishing and you don't have any money, instead of taking an advance of $5,000 or $10,000, I would self-publish for $100 and try to build your own readership and try to get readers on your own list, because you can turn that into real money later. I'm not saying turn it down. Personally, I'll probably go hybrid. If somebody offers me, like when my books start selling on Amazon, I'm new at, I should tell you, I have nonfiction. I've done well with nonfiction. I'm new at fiction publishing, but I know a lot about book marketing and book design. So when my books start selling, I'm open to working with traditional publishers because I know I can't necessarily get into bookstores, but if I'm selling really well on Amazon, someone will make me an offer. And if I think I would like to take a few of my books and go traditional to reach a wider audience, I would do that even if I'm losing money, because long term I can get people back on my email list. I can make more money that way. But traditional publishing isn't really, there's not more money in traditional publishing. There's more money in self-publishing if you do it right and you do it well, which is why it's actually a very exciting time to be an author, because very few authors are doing it well. Most authors are signing up with a vanity press, or they're signing up with a small press that means well, but they're really not doing great book design, or they're not doing any book marketing. So authors are giving up control and getting ugly books. And then even if you're doing everything right and it's designed well and marketed well, authors aren't really taking advantage of the high-level book marketing hacks, like fixing your SEO or getting your keywords, your categories set up right so that your book is discoverable, or using KDP or perma-free, getting lots of book reviews. There's so many things that even authors who are doing the base stuff right, like they've published a good-looking book, it's a decent read, but they're not taking advantage of pricing strategies or marketing hacks or optimizing their Amazon page or focusing on building traffic to their website. There's a lot of things that you can do as a self-publishing author that can earn a lot of money that most people are not comfortable doing. A lot of it is because it's too technical, and if you don't understand WordPress or SEO or all this stuff, there's a lot of stuff to learn besides just formatting and designing your book, which is hard enough to learn as it is. Like, that's the first step of self-publishing, which is why I'm kind of putting together this video series, is because you've got to learn the basic stuff first. But then when you've done the basic stuff and you have a book for sale and it's really as good as it needs to be, almost always it isn't, because people ask me for feedback, and almost always the book cover is not good enough. They don't have at least 10 reviews. Their Amazon page isn't optimized. So most authors are trying to market a book that isn't ready for marketing because it's not a finished product yet. And I hope my videos and my tutorials and my templates and all the things I'm making can help indie authors at least finish their product and make it presentable, and make it's got to be good enough so that when you send people to your Amazon page, and they're the right people, they're people who should be interested in your book, those people should buy the book. If they're not buying the book, there's something wrong with your cover or your description, or you don't have enough book reviews. So if you're marketing and sending people to your Amazon page and they're not buying, you haven't finished yet. You haven't finished publishing. You haven't finished your product. Your sales page isn't making the sale. And that's your problem. It's not the marketing that you need. You don't need to learn about book marketing yet. You need to learn how to make a better looking book and sell it to the ideal readers. Then you've got to drive ideal readers to your website and your Amazon page, but that's a different thing. Most authors, like 80% of people who have published a book, they don't have a book that's ready to sell yet because it's just not finished. So make sure you're not one of those people. Make sure you get feedback on your cover and test it. If you're sending people, if you're doing promotions, you've got to test if people are clicking. If you have an ugly book cover and you're putting it on Facebook or on Twitter and nobody's clicking, you know what the problem is. Nobody wants it. It's just you're either not putting it in front of the right people, or it doesn't look good enough, or you're not selling it the right way. But if you are getting clicks and they're getting to your Amazon page and they're not buying, you have a problem with your Amazon page or your cover, or even your look inside. Maybe the writing isn't good enough. So people click on the look inside and they find out that there's typos, or the introduction, the first chapter isn't strong enough, and you're losing people. You need to know those problems with your published book before you spend any money on marketing or advertising, because that's going to be a big waste. But the nice thing is, if you are self-publishing, you can change those things. You can get a new book cover. You can experiment with your sales description. You can be more active trying to get more reviews to your book on all these different platforms. When you're self-publishing, you know that nobody else is doing it for you, and you are allowed to experiment and figure things out. It's a learning process. There's a ton of things you have to learn, but you can figure it out, and you can be active in trying to do it better. Because if you do everything right, you can sell your book and make a lot of money self-publishing. It's difficult because there's a lot of things that can go wrong in that process. But if you go through these videos and the resources and the guides that I've made for you, I hope it'll be easier for you to figure out what's gone wrong. I'm not doing... I used to say, like, email me for feedback. I still do that. If you email me for feedback on something, I'll probably respond and tell you what's wrong with your Amazon page or your cover. But that's not really what I do anymore, because for years I've been spending a lot of time doing that, and now I'm focused on my own fiction. If you can sign up for a course or a program where you're paying for someone to help you out, that's worth it, as long as they know what you're doing. Most people probably don't know about high-level marketing stuff or book cover design. A lot of people who sell book publishing courses or book marketing courses, they're not book cover designers. So they might give you pretty good advice, but they may not be able to give you really qualified expert advice. And not everybody knows what they're talking about. And it's very easy for someone to be a self-publishing expert who doesn't know a lot about book cover design. And that's a huge part of your self-publishing effort. Your book cover design is your face. It's the first thing. So whenever you say anything about your book cover is the first thing people are going to respond to. And it's a hit or miss. If it's not immediately effective, they're going to distrust everything else you say. They're just not going to believe anything else about your book if your book cover doesn't look really professional. But we'll talk that's another topic for other videos. So I'm going to stop this video here. Self-publishing isn't very difficult. It's just getting the files up. You can pay someone to do it very cheaply. Learning how to do it yourself is a major effort. But if you're going to publish a lot of books, which you need to do if you're going to earn a lot of money self-publishing, it's worth figuring out how to do some kind of design and formatting, because you're going to need graphic design for your book marketing efforts anyway. Not necessarily, because you can pay someone on Fiverr for $10, you could probably get something better than you could do on your own. So you want to be careful. I know a lot of self-publishing authors who do everything themselves, and they make really ugly material. And if all of your website and your book covers and your marketing stuff, if it's all really badly designed, like terribly ugly, that's going to hurt you. It's so much better to spend $20 and get someone else to make you graphics or promotional materials or a new website header or a new cover. You need to be aware of that, because if you're not a designer and you're trying to do everything on your own and you're making really ugly stuff, that's going to hurt you and nothing's going to work. So, and it's common. It's very common for self-publishing authors who are writers who don't know how to design things. It's very common for you to start off making ugly things that you think are really awesome. So you need to be careful and aware of that, because if you're doing that, you need to stop, because it's going to hurt.